Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the festival director and program director of Something Wicked Film Festival and Events. And welcome to this glorious show where we sit down and discuss everything that is horror, from movies to movies to movies, which just means we just do movies. So to get us started on this episode, in which we are actually going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite movies, or all-time favorite John Carpenter movies, is In the Mouth of Madness. And to bring us a little bit of info about that movie is Dave Watkins and Nate Hill, who have been on the show plenty of times before. They have some great insight on film appreciation and film history and everything horror. That's why we bring them here, and that's why we're going to have this conversation about one of my favorite films. So, Nate, Dave, say hello to everyone, and then we'll get started with our episode for this evening.
Thanks for having us on, man. Good times.
How's it going? I just think we should talk about movies more.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to suggest that, actually.
Enough.
Yeah.
We don't talk about movies enough on this show.
Yeah.
But we're going to, as long as you stick around and listen to us. So, with this movie, In the Mouth of Madness, which is, I think, is a almost flawless John Carpenter film, I have to ask each of you, what was your impression of this movie when you first saw it? Nate?
When I first saw it, wow. I was a youngin' at the time. The very, very first time I saw this thing. Which dated myself, I'm sure. But I went into this thing having no idea what it was about. I had not seen a trailer. I had only heard the movie title that same day. My friend Sam Nance, he knew somebody at the local theater who just happened to have a couple extra tickets, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll go see a free movie. What could it possibly do to myself? And then, wow. Wow, this thing hit. And life has never been the same.
But I tell you, I've watched it several times preparing for this, and I've watched it so many times, I'm starting to feel like one of the characters in the movie. You know, they bring the Sutter Kane books and their eyes start bleeding after that. You know,
oh, yeah, you're starting to get that facial rash.
Yeah.
I noticed.
Yeah. It's definitely a problem. I think the first time I saw it, I'd read about it in Fangoria before I saw it. And
Same here.
Yeah, and so I was familiar that it was a John Carpenter movie. I don't remember at the time which movies I had seen of his, but yeah, I was. I liked it. I thought it was. I think that I was familiar with Sam Neill too, and I think his performance in it is like fantastic, and he's really grounds the movie, playing the kind of the character's name's John Trent, who's investigating this disappearance of Sutter Kane, who as he starts out as a skeptic, and the further he goes into it, really the first time he reads the books, like reality starts to change until he eventually becomes insane. And as you're watching it, yeah.
Dave, give Sam Neill credit. He does grime the movie as well as grounded.
Well, I actually said grind, and that doesn't happen in the movie. But
maybe a little grind too.
But they actually said they shot a love scene, but they cut it from the movie. So.
From my interpretation, there was a lot of stuff that was cut, and a lot of stuff I think should have been cut. A lot of the monster effects and visual effects and stuff that you see the monsters was cut. They actually, when you mentioned Fangoria, that is where I know of the stuff that was cut, because they had mentioned so much of it that eventually got cut in the movie.
It's still there. It's just not shown in great length.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing it. There's a picture in the Fangoria magazine, the close up of one of the monsters that chase him at the end, and it's in there. I think it's like, as far as how they chose to edit, it is actually a fairly effective way of not showing them too much in this particular movie, because of the way it's not really excessive, and it's more trying to get into your head. I think sometimes not seeing some of the stuff helps it to kind of stay in your head more, as far as, because same thing when you're reading a book, it's like you're able to read. It's based on like a a book anyway, and so not it's not based on
Well,
it's based on people. It's
inspired.
based on people who read a book and become crazy from reading a book. So not and you're reading a book, you fill in that stuff with your imagination, and in the movie, it leaves a lot to your imagination too.
Exactly. I agree with that because that's kind of like how I took it when I first saw the movie, even after reading the Fangoria article and probably several other articles about the movie prior to it being released. I kind of when I saw it, I was like, this is a true John Carpenter film in that he's playing with the audience's expectations of what they expect to see, and they make up all the horror themselves. For the first 2/3 of the movie, there's very little horror in the movie itself.
Right.
You're following Trent as he's investigating what the disappearance of Sutter Kane, and he slowly loses his grip on reality as he becomes, as you say, part of the story of the book, which is what I really like.
Oh, I do think there's plenty of horror in the first third or so. Not like a gory.
No, not like gory, but it's like a shock. It's shock. It's like reading a book and it's a shock for a moment, like the double fake out where he's having the nightmare and seeing the police brutality scene, and he sees it as though it's real, and then the next time the cop is the zombie, and he wakes back up, and the zombie cop is right next to him, and then he wakes back up again. It's more like shock value.
Right. I mean, I think as far as though I kind of was thinking the same thing when I first saw it. I thought it kind of took a while for something to really happen to really. I think the opening was really good, where it starts in the asylum and you see him crazy, But after that, it does kind of slow go a little bit. But but at the same time,
I love that.
watching it again, if you look at where stuff starts to happen, it's not really that long. For some reason, I think it's just in between the opening and there's like a brief part before he reads the book, and he reads the book, and then shit starts to progressively get worse.
That's it.
I did love that coffee shop meeting while they're just like chilling out while a guy in an axe out of that building across the street.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's weird, I guess, because like I was thinking the same thing about it going slow, but at the same time, the guy shows up with an axe, busts through the window, but at the same time, it's like I think you're thinking I want more horror immediately, but I don't know.
Well, the thing is, I noticed when I watched it this time, you're missing making note of the perfect scene here. The scene with Bernie Casey and Sam Neill sitting in the restaurant talking about Sutter Kane. All of a sudden, the guy with the axe comes through, and he busts through the window, and he waits. It's not like it's an immediate thing where he tries to kill Trent. He addresses Trent directly. Have you read Sutter Kane?
I love that line.
And it's not until he doesn't respond that you see the cops pull out and they shoot him. But you don't see the gunshots ever hit the character, or you don't see no blood splatter or anything like that. It's almost, you have to imagine that that's what you're seeing.
Interesting. In the director's commentary, there's actually two directors' commentary. There's one from a long time ago where John Carpenter's talking with the director of photography, and then the one that's shot in probably 2017 when he's got his wife, who was the producer on the show, on the movie. She wasn't his wife then, but they were doing it together. But on that one where he's talking with his wife, he mentions that he's like, I got a lot of shit for not having squibs on the guy there. He's like, she was like, yeah, it just came down to production. It was just like, we spend this money on the squibs or not spend it. But yeah, I don't think you needed it there, though.
I don't think you needed it. I think it was very effective the way it was. That whole scene got me right into the story, which is a story within a story.
Right.
Well, it's just having those contact lenses on his eyes and like a quick makeup on him. Just subtle stuff.
So it was some crazy looking contact lenses, like double pupil contact lenses, which is kind of a new thing at that time. And Greg Nicotero was the one that came up with that idea, apparently.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's great because these subtle things are happening to characters all around Trent through the movie, and he doesn't pick up on it at first. The people that are infected by reading something involving the book, and I'm like thinking that subtlety is what brings you into the story, but it also takes Trent's character out of the real world and into the story world.
I think about, and I was thinking about it earlier, and it does kind of have like the pacing at the beginning of an older type of horror movie, like a classic horror movie. where I think that if you were to think about if someone from that era who wasn't used to, they would probably think this was extreme pacing. If they were watching this, you know what I'm saying? Like, where it was like back then it was like that was the pacing, and in this one they probably gives you stuff a lot quicker than it would back then.
When you say back then, do you mean
Let's say, like,
70s?
well, I would say even earlier than that. Say like in the 30s or 40s. Say like with Frankenstein or Dracula. Or say kind of like let me say the case of Dorian Gray. That's one of those where it starts out with them telling the story. Yeah, the picture Dorian Gray. It starts off with them telling the story, and it goes into flashback, and it progresses. So I mean,
when you mentioned something else that I didn't notice until this time is it does feel like a really older film, especially in terms of a detective story. Mostly because you see Sam Neill and other characters smoking the entire time as though that they're old detective movie. I don't think I ever really noticed that until I watched it just recently. I was like, you know what? They do a lot of smoking in this movie. And
well, back then there was smoking going on. Now it's like they've kind of done a good job of taking the advertising away from it and not letting most movies don't show it on purpose, so it doesn't encourage people to smoke. So you don't see it as much now as you did back then, unless you're watching HBO or something.
I like it because it's actually in there, and it makes me feel like I'm in a detective story, since that's what you always saw in detective stories back then.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Definitely smoked. They also had other old stuff in there. It was like the typewriter at one point, and as you know, there's no cell phones in the movie. There's like corded phones, which always like to not see cell phones in movies. It's always like an awesome thing,
Yeah, that's a nice little element.
Yeah.
Well, not have.
Yeah. Well, do you think people have cell phones in Hobbs End?
Yeah, no.
But even like to know what kind of coverage you get in Hobbs End.
Yeah, there would be no coverage, I would assume.
Yeah. So it's interesting, the casting for this film, because we had Charlton Heston and Bernie Casey and Jürgen Prochnow. Like, there's a bunch of people that you would never expect to be in a horror film, much less a John Carpenter film.
Well, Jürgen Prochnow, though, however you pronounce it, that's not quite how you pronounce it, but he was in The Keep. I think that's the first time I saw him in something. But he was also in Dune, David Lynch's Dune. But I didn't know him. Like when I watched this movie, I was already aware of him. Yeah, he plays like Duke Atreides in the original Dune, like David Lynch's Dune. Yeah,
I think you're right too. I forgot about that.
I've seen that movie too many times to be wrong on it, and but he's but he's a great actor though, and he's even in The Keep, I liked his subtle performance because he's kind of the good German character in that one. But in this one, it's weird. He doesn't show up until about halfway through the film, even though you hear his voice one time earlier. But he's not in the movie a lot, but he has a good presence when he does show up. And he's got really big hair for some reason. I don't know. That's not really a good thing, but it looks kind of big. But
yeah, when I saw
writers don't have time for haircuts.
It's part of the Hobbs End look, the old town, look. He's got that old look, or that classic writer look. You gotta remember, Sutter Kane outsells Jesus in the Bible. So
yeah.
It's Stephen King.
That's an interesting concept too, because at the time I think Stephen King was huge. So Sutter Kane's obviously kind of Stephen King, but it's also the stories are H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh yeah,
but that's an interesting concept because at the time Stephen King's books probably were outselling copies of the Bible. So it was like it was probably very, very true. They were probably looking at, okay, this is an odd thing that this is happening. But I think now it would be more like they're watching YouTube, and is on YouTube, or the Mouth of Madness is on YouTube, and that's how they go crazy, or TikTok maybe.
TikTok.
In the mouth. They might just be recording a podcast about movie reviews and having like subtle.
Yeah, but then they only get 100 people to watch that at the top, so
You gotta build an audience. Remember that.
Yeah.
You gotta do something about true crime. This is
yeah.
a true crime podcast. You might have a shot.
Yeah, you probably do.
But Charlton Heston in this movie, he was one of his like later movies.
Yep.
One of his bigger roles in later movies. Not that he was in it that much, but I think he had like 3 or 4 scenes. One of his later ones was pretty good. And does a very subtle performance in this.
And he is the publisher, correct?
The publisher, yeah.
Publisher.
And but he's like I say, he's in it a few times at the beginning, and then near the end, it shows him again. But it was cool to get him in there. He's old school actor.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I was like really surprised. If you watched all of, most of Carpenter's films, you don't see him having too many old school, classic actors like Charlton Heston, who actually did play in, what was it, the Ten Commandments?
Yeah.
So
it was Ben-Hur, and it was the Ten Commandments too. He played Moses in that.
Yeah, I had to think about it. Maybe that was Carpenter's way of playing on everything there.
Yeah.
But even having Bernie Casey in the movie, I don't think he ever did a horror movie. He did lots of little action movies and dramas and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen that character again. It's too bad that they had to drop. I would have liked to revisit him one more time at the end, with kind of when they go back to Charlton Heston. But I guess
which one was?
He's the guy in the cafeteria. I mean, in the what was it? The diner scene when the guy busted the window. The guy he's talking.
Oh.
It's Trent's early employer. He hires Trent all the time to investigate all of the phony claims. So
yeah, well, I guess since most of the movie after the first act takes place in Hobbs End, it would have been weird to revisit that character because you needed it was either one or the other. It was either him or Charlton Heston's character. It made more sense for Charlton Heston's character to be the one to tell him that they've made a movie, But he goes in, and that's how because he tries to get rid of the book and he can't get rid of it, and he thinks that he did, and he comes in there, and Charlton Heston's character is like, "Oh, you brought it to me like 2 months ago or something," But he also he's the publisher for the book, and he has a good line in there that he says, he asked him if he read the book. He said, "I don't read any of them. I don't have a stomach for it." So that's kind of the executive sort of thing. That's why he's not. And a lot of the other people aren't in there, but I think once somebody reads the book, the shit just goes downhill from there,
Yeah, that's actually kind of an Alan Moore-esque sort of scene with the publisher and Sam Neill character, John Trent, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? The evil has already succeeded. It happened 2 months ago.
Yeah. I know that when I first saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." He's like, "You're 6 or 7 months behind. We've already got the movie next month, dude.
Yeah.
You
get together, man."
Because I hate to tell you, when I first saw the movie, I was not thinking that it was going to end that way, which I should have, having seen The Thing and every one of his Prince of Darkness and his other.
So John Carpenter considers this the third in his Apocalypse trilogy, being his other two movies.
That's right. Yeah. I heard about that for the first time while looking into the movie.
And all 3 movies have an ambiguous ending, where you don't know exactly what's happening or what happened. What's going to happen next. So.
Yeah, but this one and The Thing are a little bit more accessible than Prince of Darkness with its weird futurist version, or the one woman who might have gone to the future and sending a signal back to the past. And
I think Prince of Darkness. To me, it's what happens. It's he brings. So they unleash the son of Satan, and at the end, he goes. They say in the movie they only see that vision when the son of Satan is near. So he has the dream, and then he goes to the mirror, and he doesn't touch it, but the mirror is probably, once he does touch it, it's going to but it doesn't tell you whether or not he's going to touch it. But I think because he had the dream, I think the shit is about to hit the fan there.
You saved the world for 5 seconds, and now it's gonna the shit's about to hit the fan one more time.
Yeah.
With In the Mouth of Madness, by the end of the movie, it already has gone past hitting the fans. It's pretty much everyone's. If you haven't seen the movie yet, it's unfortunate for you, but yeah, pretty much everyone is dead. Trent is the last one sitting in the movie theater watching his own life pass before his eyes before he himself becomes infected. I absolutely love the fact that he's just laughing his ass off because he's finally crazy, and that's how it ended. I love the
No, the very end is
some,
everything goes blue. And
I have some thoughts about that, though. I have some thoughts about that.
So, okay, then please let me know the thoughts.
All right,
so this is the kind of tongue-in-cheek thought about it. But so he goes into the movie and he's watching the movie and he's on the screen acting in the movie, right? But the character has been a detective or insurance investigator who's kind of a detective the whole movie, not an actor. But but it could be there's this meme with Gary Oldman and it says, imagine one day you're at work, out for a drink or shopping, and someone calls cut, and it turns out you're Gary Oldman all along, and that's how good an actor he is. So he didn't realize he was acting, and he all of a sudden is watching the movie. He's like, "Oh shit, I shot a whole movie, and now cut." I'm like,
damn it, I'm Gary Oldman.
Yeah. But no, but really though, I think there's a couple of other things that's completely a joke, but. But I think I think there's really two alternatives that happen there. One is what you're saying. That's the end of the world. The apocalypse started. But there's questionable parts about it that point towards a possible different direction. So he's in the cell earlier in the movie. A hand busts the window behind him, and then he wakes back up and the window's fine. So what if he's still in the cell? Crazy. He goes out of the cell. Everything's fucked up. This is only him crazy. And maybe other people going crazy too, but I think this is his end and not the end of the world per se. But you do see a scene like with the doctors earlier in the movie, before the doctor comes in, David Warner's character comes in to talk to him. He's talking to John Glover, and John Glover's character is asking him, "You think he's one of them?" So there is, if it can be believed that there's an unreliable narrator possibility to this movie since he's telling the story. So, but if you looking at the first scene, the only scene that takes place before the story, the doctors say there's some shit going on. So there is some shit going on, but if he tells a story, we don't know what's true and what's not.
Yeah.
And then it comes out of the story at the end. And is he still in? He could still. I don't know. That's another possibility. But I think he is I think there's a epidemic going on, but it might not necessarily be everybody's affected. Like when he comes out at the end,
they're all infected. They watched the movie if they didn't read the book.
But the question. Here's the thing. It doesn't make sense for him to really be watching the movie because he didn't shoot the movie. He's watching something that's not real. That shit on the screen is not real. There's what I'm saying? And it's real to the point that Sutter Kane, if he wrote the story and then affected reality the way he wanted, apparently he could do whatever he wants to with the book, but if he affected reality to the extent that this character can go into the movie theater, sit down and watch scenes that weren't really being filmed of his life on the screen, almost like say you're in the afterlife and they're like, okay, I'm going to show you some shit that happened in your life, Yeah,
you bring up a valid point because like Charlton Heston's character says, they were already, the movie comes out next month. That means they've been shooting it and editing the movie while he's been off doing his little whatever he's been doing. And so he could just be an actor who went crazy and all of this is in his head. Yeah, now that's some deep thinking there, Dave.
John Carpenter finally pushes Gary Oldman too far, and then it cracks and becomes Samuel.
That would be an interesting concept if you were able to pull it out and analyze it and then write it up so people can actually understand how you came to that conclusion.
Well, I think I was just thinking to watching it because it's like. You can't it basically looks at it and he's an actor on the screen unless he really was an actor. It's not going to really be him on the screen, because I'm thinking in my head for this to make sense to me. Mm-hmm. He goes into it, sits down in the theater, and he sees a different actor playing him on the screen doing the scenes from the movie, and that would be like, okay, that shit just happened. But then if he goes in and watching the movie and it's him on the screen doing the scenes, then it didn't happen,
Which is funny because if you notice, and I didn't notice this before, I just rewatched the film, that before Trent walks into the theater, he walks by the poster for the movie and or the marquee. I can't remember if it was the marquee or the poster, but the marquee says "In the Mouth of Madness" starring Trent.
Yeah, John Trent. Yeah.
John Trent.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think it says "In the Mouth of Madness" with John Trent. Yeah. It's pretty.
Which
sad.
I never noticed. I never noticed before.
So he's apparently like such a big name that his name's going to be on the marquee too. You know,
that's why I can entertain your concept for a few moments. Is because I only noticed that for the first time this last time I just watched it. I was like, oh wait, I never noticed that.
So in Sutter Kane's world, John Trent is actually as big as Tom Cruise.
Yes, keep in mind that throughout
Charlton
the movie,
Heston, actually.
Wow.
throughout the movie, when Trent's in Hobbs End, the characters do whatever Sutter Kane writes.
Right,
so
yeah.
essentially, we all could be just seeing that on screen. We're seeing exactly what Sutter Kane has written, and that's what we get. So
yeah. So, but and that explains another kind of potential flaw to the movie where he's telling the story to the doctor, but then there are scenes where Linda Stiles, his the editor who goes with him to Hobbs End, where she is like she's in scenes without him in the flashbacks, and she's also like she's noticing, like, they go into Hobbs End, he falls asleep, she sees actual going over into Hobbs End, but to explain that we're not necessarily seeing the story he's telling the doctor. Maybe we're seeing the actual story. That's the only way I can explain seeing scenes that he's not in. Maybe he's telling the doctor a story. Maybe it's not the one we're seeing.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how I would like explain it. So it was like, why were you seeing scenes he's not in? Well, how do you know we're even seeing the story he's telling?
It would be interesting to see how many people come up with the same conclusion as you did, and that is a reason to dislike the movie. Movies in which you have unreliable main characters always are contention between people. One of my favorites being High Tension or Switchblade Romance, where you were watching the whole movie and it's revealed at the very end that the woman is the killer the whole time. And you're like, how can that possibly be? It makes no sense whatsoever. It doesn't matter.
Comment.
Yes.
I remember seeing High Tension with a free movie pass, actually, in a theater full of a crowd.
Uh-huh.
And we're all watching that. That's the only time I've been in a theater where everybody at the same time groans at the exact same moment when that reveal in High Tension comes up. It was like nobody was buying it. And
I remember watching it at my house on I think I watched it on maybe DVD or VHS, and then that happened and I groaned myself. I don't know. I heard myself groaning.
I saw it at the theater too when it first came out, and that was the exact same reaction that the entire theater had. And for the longest time, I hated that fucking movie for that ending. The whole movie is great, and I hated that fucking ending.
Except for that final act twist.
Yes, but after listening to the director's commentary, I was perfectly fine with it now. And
that happens sometimes to me
it
too.
Does.
Yeah.
I can be perfectly. She's just an unreliable character, and like you're saying, Dave, Trent can be an unreliable character.
Yeah. So I guess in the High Tension though, I don't know. I didn't actually groan like that. I thought I didn't hate it as much as everybody else, but I did think I wasn't. It did kind of make the movie a little weird, because
and I could feel the hatred rising up in the audience.
If you're thinking about it too much, it's like, how did she do this? How did she do that? And it's like, what really happened? I don't know. I guess it was like
says the guy who just dissected In the Mouth of Madness.
Well, yeah. I was just throwing out some ideas. I think the ending has always kind of bothered me, just because there was some stuff about it that didn't make sense. But I think too, I was listening to some of the like the director's commentary and stuff, and some behind the scenes interviews, and it seemed like they couldn't quite figure out what to do with that ending. They originally had a similar. I think they shot a few different things, but they had one in the theater. He's cracking up, and suddenly like a tentacle comes through the popcorn, and then well, actually before that happens, the Linda Stiles come up behind him, and then her tentacle come up through the popcorn to kill him. So, but the ending's better without that.
Yeah, it's much better. I heard that too. I heard there was some issues with the ending of the movie, or it didn't test right, or there was something I remember about the movie itself, and that's why there were so many issues with it. Because if I'm not mistaken, this movie came out not that long, or in between Carpenter's Village of the Damned, which also did not do well at the box office because John Carpenter's films don't do well at the box office.
No.
He's the ultimate cult director whose films do horrible at the box office, but for some reason do extremely well as cult movies.
Right. I think almost every one of them, like you said, like they just didn't do good, except for Halloween. I guess Halloween's an exception. But I think most of them, the high concept ones, like especially these three, like The Thing and Prince of Darkness, and this one, it was kind of didn't do as good as they would have liked. Just because they didn't put teenage characters in there getting sliced by a slasher.
Yes, I was right. Yeah, Village of the Damned did come out soon after In the Mouth of Madness. And I was in a real big kick with John Carpenter when this came out, so I saw these fucking movies at the theater.
Yeah, I saw The Village of the Damned in the theater too. That one was it was all right. It was it was definitely not one of. I think on second viewing, I definitely like it better, appreciate it more, but it definitely was kind of a little slow move on that one. Slow moving. But it is like very much like the classic one, just a little more graphic.
I'm a little partial to the classic one. I do like some of the changes that they did do to make it more modern. But it is slower. And I like the original better. And I read the book. The book is also really The Midwich Cuckoos is actually a really good book too. So. But
I guess like when we haven't really talked about the actress Julie Carmen, I thought it was an interesting choice for that character, just because I guess most of the other stuff I've seen her in, I mean, she is like she usually plays a Latina character, and here she's not that she's not Latina, but the character is not written specifically for like that type of actress. But I thought her performance the first time I watched it, I did kind of feel it was. I thought this is all on purpose. It feels a little stiff because she's a business person, but I really like it. I think it's definitely on purpose, and it works really well. And she does have good chemistry with Sam Neill.
Mm-hmm.
But the part where it gets further into it, and she reads like she goes and sees Sutter Kane, and he makes her read the book, and she goes insane, and she goes back to the hotel room to tell him about it, and she's just like completely going insane, and she says she's like I'm losing me. That seems very effective, she's a very good actress, really, though. If you look at that scene and you see what she was doing the whole movie, I really like her. I don't like it that happens to her so early, but even after that, what she's doing when she looks pretty creepy in most of the scenes after that. But I hated that they took her off the board so early, but at the same time, he kind of had to get to just John Trent by himself,
What else has she been in?
I can't pronounce the names of some of these movies, but there's I'm trying to remember some of them, but one of them is some kind of war. It's like it's a Spanish type of name, war. It starts with an M, but I'll pull it up and look. But,
yeah, I'm trying to remember the movies I saw of her before I saw this.
I haven't really seen her in too much stuff, and that was one thing about it's so interesting casting, because they could have cast like a name actor like Sam Neill, but they intentionally chose someone that people weren't familiar with, because they didn't really need a name actress because they already had Sam Neill in the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. The movie I know her from is Friday Night Part 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
maybe that's why. Yeah, but she's in. I can't even remember now what it was.
It's only because I've seen that movie more times than I probably should have.
Yeah,
consider that a bad movie. I absolutely love Fright Night Part 2.
Yeah, hopefully they've been talking about doing a release, like a 4K release. I'm hoping that
Oh,
happens
really?
soon. Yeah, that hadn't been any concrete stuff yet, but there's some weird stuff behind that movie. I think when the producers were like murdered or something like that. Like
Really?
it's something like that.
Okay.
It's something really, really weird like that happened between the first one and the second movie.
That's unexpected.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that.
yeah, something like that really weird happened where there was like I think I can't remember if it happened between the movies or after that movie. I think they were talking about making a third movie, and people who own the rights to it or something like that were murdered. But I'll have to look that up. I don't have the information in front of me, but I was reading about that recently, and I was like, well, that's crazy because I think I watched Fright Night again, and I was like, man, I really like that, and it's cool to make a second one. And then I was like, I wanted to make a third one because this could have been like a cool franchise, and then I found that out. So
Hey, just to put it out there, if you didn't know, Dave, there's a comic book series that takes a sequel to different levels. I'm surprised you don't know about that one, Nate, but that was a pretty old comic.
Not that one. I was aware that there was that independent Fright Night comic series.
The new one? There's a new one.
The late 80s, early 90s. Like one.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. From Now Comics. Now Comics.
Which one? Oh,
Now. They all they did was originally take franchises and or IP from popular movies and make them into comic books. They did
Which seems to have worked out much better for Dark Horse rather than Now or First or maybe a couple others. But I digress. Back to In the Mouth of Madness.
So I guess one more thing about the Linda Stiles character that I thought it was like the way that she ends up. It kind of reminds me a lot of Halloween 3, where the actress in that character just kind of like they're doing an investigation and then she disappears and then comes back all different. She ends up like a robot, but it's similar. She comes back and she's like a H.P. Lovecraft type of creature, and then they even have a scene in the car when they get in the car, and then he ends up having to fight her, kind of similar to Halloween 3, and then they get out on the road. So it was like. I was thinking that John Carpenter didn't direct Halloween 3, but he was kind of involved with a little bit, I think. But I'm sure that was
interesting. I didn't notice that till you mentioned that. That is one hell of a parallel between the two movies. You're right. Yeah. They're almost the concept between the two movies are almost exactly alike. The way the plot goes. And Carpenter didn't write either one of them. I don't think he wrote Halloween 3. He didn't write this one. This is Michael DeLuca who wrote this.
And he went on to later become president of New Line.
New Line. Apparently wrote Freddy's Dead too, from what I was reading. But that's like the only other movie that he really wrote. Huh. But I think it's interesting that's the case, because this movie is very like the story is fairly unique, and it seems like the guy really put a lot of thought into it. And I'm not sure how much of it John Carpenter changed, because when John Carpenter's doing his director's commentary, he does say that the movie itself is kind of the way he kind of views the world. So he may have put some touches into it. I'm not sure what, if he changed anything or not, but he did mention that. It'd be kind of odd that the scriptwriter would write it the same way John Carpenter thinks, or maybe it just kind of clicked at the right time and the right moment. I don't know.
Mm. Oh, you're right. Michael DeLuca didn't write many movies, huh?
Well, he probably has like a pile of half-written ideas and screenplays.
But he's a film executive now. He probably don't have time to do that. It's like,
he ain't got time to be writing no movies.
Yeah, you don't have the headspace for it. He's like, they got all these things they're wanting in these movies.
Holy shit! Yeah, I think this was his claim to like real fame in terms of a writer, was In the Mouth of Madness. Because Freddy's Dead, I don't. Yeah. That's kind of the rest of the stuff he did was create stories for other shit. But interesting. Because I always consider this a great movie, and I would have thought that the writer would have went on to do more stuff. But I was aware that Michael DeLuca did have to do as an executive for New Line Cinema, which is probably how it got financed.
Right, yeah. I think he's actually listed as executive producer too, so he probably paid for the whole thing too. Yeah.
It was in the early days of New Line Cinema, where the house that Freddie built. So yeah, probably. I really call it that no more, but yeah. So, you guys have any other final thoughts on In the Mouth of Madness? Oh, I see you got
Couple fun things in the background. When the character John Trent is going into the bookstore and he's going through the different Sutter Kane novels, all those titles are apparently inspired by actual H.P. Lovecraft stories.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Close to the original titles, but have been worked up.
You know what? I'd really like to know how much of influence Lovecraft was for Michael DeLuca when he wrote the original script, because the general concept of people going mad when they read a book.
That's totally an H.P. Lovecraft.
That's totally Lovecraft, but the way in which the story unfolds, and I have to say I haven't read much Lovecraft. I'd be curious to see if that's something totally Michael DeLuca, or if that's something that he actually borrowed also from Lovecraft. Have either one of you read any Lovecraft at all?
I've seen all the Lovecraft movies, but
the movies certainly. I think Lovecraft is best handled as either an audiobook or a graphic novel adaptation. His writing style is not easy to get through. I've known people who love it, are into it, but it's old English writing style.
It seems to be hard to bring the stories to film too, especially because of the special effects part of it. They seem to be hard to bring to. Yeah.
But go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. I was just going to say another observation just from the movie, unrelated to that. But
go ahead.
So there's like at the beginning, the first time it shows Sam Neill in the regular. I mean, when he first goes into flashback, there's a scene where he's it's for only time it really shows him doing his job, which is the insurance investigator, and he's busting this guy who's trying to do some insurance fraud.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's Peter Jason plays him, and he busts him pretty good. He's so the guy's knows he's got him, and he goes up behind him and he just kind of pats him on the shoulder at that point. So later on in the movie, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but there's a scene where Sam Neill's character is trying to get away. And he ends up trying to get away. He's on a bus, and then it cuts to this part where he sees the Sutter Kane shows up on the bus and talks to him, and he says his favorite color is blue or whatever, and then it shows the bus in blue, and then it comes back to normal time, and he's that's when he really starts to lose it, and then he's freaking out, and then someone comes up behind him and pats him on the back, similar to what happened in the first scene.
Interesting.
I got you. It's
that's interesting. I didn't notice that, but you were absolutely right. Oh my god! Yeah.
I don't know if that's on purpose, but I listened to it, both commentaries, and it's not mentioned. But to me, it's that's a perfect. I mean, it may have been in Michael DeLuca's script. But that's a perfect way to say that the first time you see him in action, he's kind of being he's probably kind of smug too into his job, and he busts this guy, and he pats him on the back, good job, asshole, But then the same thing happens to him right before he goes crazy, So
nice try.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. I think you're absolutely right with that. That's even if you didn't hear Carpenter say it in one of his commentaries, I think that's a great observation. I think that's absolutely right. I think that was wow. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Okay. Anything else, Nate?
John Carpenter plays one of the maniacs in the first time you see that asylum scene where Sam Neill is locked away and he's screaming, "I'm not insane."
Right. I didn't notice that.
Take up the cry.
I did not notice that. I'll have to go back and rewind that.
I'll have to go back and watch it too because I didn't notice it either. One of my last observations that I noticed is the humor in this movie. I didn't realize how funny this fucking movie is. And Sam Neill's character is. First of all, when I rewatched it, I noticed the whole thing about when he kicks the one guard in the balls and he's apologizing for it. And
then a lucky shot.
Yeah.
It's just a lucky shot. And of course, the one odd scene when he's with Julie Carmen in the car and he takes the little horn and wakes her up with it. It seems odd that an insurance person would do that, but it also fits his character perfectly. And he keeps doing those type of funny moments throughout the entire film.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. She's trying to sleep, and he acts like he doesn't even mention the horn. But that getting kicked in the balls, I would think that would. I don't think that Garb would be able to keep doing his job after that.
No, but you do see him in the next scene, like limping, and you see John Glover watching him.
That's an hilarious reaction from John Glover's character too. And
a hilarious reaction, and
that guard is going to get some payback later on.
Oh my god! So I just want to make comment on the odd comedy in this film because I don't see a lot of comedy like this in John Carpenter's films. But it just kind of stuck out on me on this. And I'm wondering if that was part of Carpenter, if it was part of Michael DeLuca's script itself.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's not a lot of comedy moments, but there are like you say, that one in the car. It's and there is the talk of they mentioned the thing about hitting the balls. Like I think they mentioned it twice after that.
And it also cracked me up when while John Trent is asleep and the publisher character is driving through all that madness, and they arrive at Hobbs End, the small town. And, Sam Neill wakes up, looks around. Hey, way to go. And she's like, look, you drive. Yeah, the timing of that's a good moment.
Like Dave said, both those actors had great chemistry in this movie. So.
And one last thing, then this will be my last item to bring up. This is apparently the first big break for, not big break, but the first on-screen appearance of Hayden Christensen years before he became Darth Vader in the Disney movies.
Yeah, he shows up. He's the paper boy after they get off the bus. Yeah,
Hayden Christensen is the paper boy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
So he has John Carpenter to thank for his entire career.
Well,
Paper boy.
He was a lot younger though. He looked like the original Anakin Skywalker, the Phantom Menace.
Oh my God, that's some trivia for your asses.
Yeah.
Audience members, if you didn't know, Hayden Christensen was in the Mouth of Madness as the paper boy at the end of the movie. That's some movie trivia for you. I want to thank my guests, Dave and Nate, for joining me on this Conversations of Horror in regards to John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and you will seek out some of our previous episodes. We have a lot of them, so please feel free to check them out. We have a lot coming up in the future that we hope that you will join us for, and you can find us on all social media pages and any place you can listen to your podcast, you can find us on. And if you can't find us on those, check us out on YouTube, where we also have a channel where you can watch all of our episodes and get to know some of the episodes that are coming up. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a pleasant evening. Good.
Go read Sutter Kane.
Go read Sutter Kane. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.